we just talked about running backs in general, was should the the major running backs, the big name running backs, actually consider going on strike? It does seem like this pay is getting out of hand. The opinions and ideas around the running back position are also wildly out of hand. I know we discussed that, this is a passing league now. It's more of a passing league now, but football is never one or the other. Football is always a balance. You can never overcommit to one thing, because that's when you lose. So the running back position is still important. Now, am I saying they should be making $30 million a year like, a Justin Jefferson should be, or, a Jamar Chase should be? No, that's not my argument necessarily. But I definitely think they're worth a lot more than $13 million. And Austin Eckler brought it up earlier in the week when he discussed about, we're making less than a lot of wide receiver twos are. I mean, that's a very valid statement. You have a guy who could be a star on the team like Saquon Barkley making less than T. Higgins. Right. Who would you rather have on your team, a T. Higgins or a Saquon Barkley? So what do you think? Should they band together, form a little running back union, and head on strike until they're paid fairly, or what are your thoughts?
I'm just worried that they don't have leverage. They should in theory, because they are just getting completely crapped on right now. Mm-hmm. I'm just worried that a strike doesn't work unless that party has a good amount of leverage, right? So I think, yes, if say Barkley sat out this season, right? Does the Giants offense perform worse? Yes, right? But if the GMs as a whole think that running backs don't really have that great of an impact on the game right now, how good of a strike would it be? What would be that impact? What if the Giants just sign someone else and the offense performed somewhat the same? Then you just lost your job for good almost. But to your point, I think so in practice, yes. They should at least try to do something to reset the market and reset their value. I'm just worried that they don't have leverage right now because of the overall perspective that is placed on the running back group as a whole.
Yeah, and we did a poll earlier in the week too, where we asked fellow fans and what are their thoughts? Do they believe running backs are overpaid, or should they just suck it up? And I think and I think it was almost split. It was 45-55 people saying they should suck it up. And I think what people need to remember about this is these people they're not stats, they're not a video game character. These are real human beings. Put yourself in their shoes. If you're at a job that you're working, you've been busting your whole life for, it's what you love to do, it's what you're good at, and you get to this job and they go, oh yeah, by the way, you're very disposable and we're not paying you more than minimum wage. You would be justifiably upset. Yeah. Exactly. Especially when you're overworked and you're busting your butt, you're working 12-hour days, and they still go, yeah, but if you don't like it, I can just grab some other dude off the street and pay him the exact same thing or less, actually. I think it's only justifiable for them to be upset about this, especially when you're putting your body on the line. But to your point, I think it is the ultimate line in the sand, because if they do sit out and then teams perform just as well as they did before, you're right, you have no more leverage. But if you sit out and teams for example, Derrick Henry sits out, we just talked about Tennessee being a potential AFC championship team. That's because of Derrick Henry and the DeAndre Hopkins combination. If it's just DeAndre Hopkins, I don't think that team's a championship team anymore. I think they're at best maybe a wild card team.
Yeah.
I mean, what does that difference valued at? A guy that can get you to a championship game versus a guy that just gets you barely into the playoffs.
Right.
So, that's what I'm saying. I think if they band together, who are the 49ers are like Christian McCaffrey? There was a talk from David Lombardi, who writes for The Athletic, who covers the 49ers, that it wasn't necessarily Brock Purdy's entrance into the game that what made the 49ers go on an 8-0 run or 9-0 run. It was actually Christian McCaffrey's addition that made that team. Yeah. He's a running back. He can catch the ball in the backfield, and he can run routes like a receiver, but he's a running back. What is that value at? He makes, I think, $16 million a year. So I think, again, this wide sweeping notion of all running backs are replaceable, all of them are undervalued, is, horse crap. Are they $30 million worth? No. But could you argue Christian McCaffrey and Derrick Henry might be $20 million worth?
Easily.
21, 22? Yeah, for sure. They should be. And then again, from there, there's tiers just like everything else. Dalvin Cook's probably a $10 million guy. David Montgomery's probably a $3 to $5 million guy, just like with the receivers. But the fact that you have one position group that's exploded and another position group that's stuck at 10 to 15 is ridiculous. And if they don't do anything, it's going to happen to them anyway. Teams are going to continue to devalue them. They're going to continue to lowball them, continue to like undercut them, and so you're going to be taken out anyway.
Yeah.
And my favorite.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go on. Sorry.
I was going to say, like, how many running backs have like been outspoken about this so far? Like, I know like Austin Eckler, I think Josh Jacobs said something, Saquon Barkley. Who else? I'm just trying to think of like if more voices just come forward. Like we need like a Derrick Henry. We need maybe a Christian McCaffrey, another big name like this to start this whole like movement. Yeah,
I think again, I think it's a matter of it needs more movement behind it. Even with just three guys, those are good names, but you need some additional firepower behind it to really get this kind of an idea of a movement off the ground. But yeah, I think it's just me personally. I think it's something that could make a change. And then, oh my gosh, there's something I was just thinking about, like a common thing that fans say. Here's my favorite. And this is what I've seen a couple of times just through our Twitter account here, where fans will comment or mention, "Oh, well, you don't like it, don't be a running back." And it's like, okay, but that's obviously not reasonable. There's no if the passing game was so strong, was so heavily focused, why do teams still run a running back?
Yeah.
So if everyone just didn't play running back, I mean,
yeah,
it's obviously not a reasonable, practical argument here to just say, well, you shouldn't have been a running back then. Like, well, okay, but then who was going to play running back?
Well, you also can't like decide what talents or what genetics you like get. Sometimes people go like their body developed and you just end up playing that spot because that's the best spot for you. Like you can't help that. Like
I mean, and what you could see is guys start playing other sports. I mean, for example, if a high school 5-star running back athlete, right, is looking at his options, he goes, oh, can I go to the NFL and play 3 years? Or, oh, I also play baseball, and they give 400 fully guaranteed contracts, 400 million fully guaranteed contracts. I think I'm going to pick baseball instead. At what point do we start seeing those kind of decisions happen? I also just another aspect, and we're going to get into a little bit of like a forecasting portion of here. So we don't have a crystal ball to anyone watching this, but we're just noticing trends. We are big trend watchers. In fact, I think your job pretty much is just fully based around watching trends, right?
It sure is. Just get into that data and just being a big old nerd.
It does seem to me that the league is starting to move a little bit more towards the running game. It's becoming much easier to think of teams that have a predominant running back or running game or need a predominant running back or running game. Commentators are starting to talk about, well, when it comes to the Bills, what's the Bills' biggest need? They need a running back. They need someone else to run the ball for them. The Eagles just got to the Super Bowl off a strong run game. The 49ers have had a strong run game for a while. So it seems like to me that the league is starting to pivot more towards a stronger run game. So this might actually just be the perfect time for the running backs to go on a strike and be like, hey, we see what's going on. We see where we're going. We want to be paid fairly. And it might be the right time where they have maybe the most leverage that they'll have.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
But that's our running back tangent for the week. I'm sure we'll be back here again in 2 weeks after we get more ridiculous comments and more ridiculous news and yada, yada, yada. But
that's our weekly sermon for running backs.
I know. It's such a weird thing because, again, me and you both didn't play running back.
Yeah.
I always thought running back was, a cool position and everything like that. But I never thought, like, we'd have to keep making defense videos for running backs here. Like, it's funny is whenever you press people on, like, a little bit of this, well, you can do running back by committee. When's the last time it's been successful? Well, it's this team. I was like, no, Jalen Hurts was their leading rusher. Treat him like a running back, and all of a sudden it's not a running back by committee.
Right.
Well, they use multiple guys. That's called a backup. I don't see DeAndre Hopkins getting 300 catches a game. He
Yeah.
has other receivers out there for sure. Yeah, of course. That doesn't mean it's a running back by committee. If it's by committee, every guy should be getting about 10 carries a game.
Yeah, the same amount of carries. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like what you're describing is a lead back with a backup. So,
Roast him, Emmett.
well, congratulations, you figured out how sports works. Fuck.
Oh, I
I don't
love
know.
it.
It's just some of the arguments. Like, it's when you really start talking about it to people, and you're like, you can see they're just using talking points that these hot take shows, like the
Yeah.
first takes and stuff like that, use, and they just regurgitate it. It's like when you look deeper at the numbers, it doesn't make any sense.